What's the etymological link between a quarterback and a cathedral? A tetrahedron.
Round 1.
A tetrahedron is a triangular pyramid that has 4 sides. The name means 4-sided seat or 4 seats. The tetra is Greek for 4 and the hedra is Greek for a seat. So literally 4 seats. The word tetra comes from an even older word called Kwetwer. This forms the root of the word quarter in quarterback. At first glance, the word of cathedral seemed to have nothing in common here, but the hedra seats within the word itself. A cathedra is the name for the bishop's seat. So the word is a metaphor for a bishop's seat of power, but it's also an actual seat within the building.
Round 2.
Several words have linked to tetrahedron either through the Greek tetra or the more ancient Kwetwer. These words include tetrapod, tetradactyl, quadrat, quadruple, and quarantine. But I'm going to focus on tetradactyl and quarantine. Tetradactyl have 4 digits on their extremities. The dactyl part of the word comes from the Greek word dactylus, which means finger. Tetradactyl have 4 fingers. Frogs are examples of tetradactyl organisms, unlike us humans, which you can probably guess are pentadactyl. In the genetics section of biology, you will learn about conditions known as polydactyly. This is where you have more than 5 digits on one or more of your extremities. The poly means many and dactyly fingers, so many fingers. We all get 2 copies of DNA, one from mum and one from dad, when the egg and sperm cells fuse during fertilization. To get polydactyly, you only need one faulty gene. Here is represented with the capital P. So in this genetic diagram, if one of your parents has polydactyly, you have a 50% chance of also having polydactyly. Quarantine comes from the Latin word quadraginta. This comes from an even more ancient word called quatue cumta, and this means 40. It was in the 1300s when this word quarantine became associated with infectious diseases. This is because when ships suspected of having infectious diseases aboard them approached a port or a city, they were told to isolate for 40 days. And then if no one died or there's no sign of illness, they were allowed to offload their cargo and themselves onto the city.
Final round.
The word comes from a reconstructed language called Proto-Indo-European, also known as Pi. This language is the ancestor for many languages in Europe and India. It literally means first Indian-European language. The process of new languages arising is very similar to how new species arrive. In a later video, I will go through language evolution. So as we can see, from Portuguese to English, Hindi to Russian, all of those languages can be traced back to Proto-Indo-European. It isn't surprising then that many words that we use today find their origins back in Pi. We looked at hedra, which meant seat, but hedra itself finds its origin in Proto-Indo-European, in this word which means sit. A word linked to sid is sedative. Sedatives are medicines that tend to calm and soothe, relax you so you want to take a seat and chill. Barbiturates are a class of sedatives. It's interesting how they got their name was from this guy over here, Adolf von Breyer. According to the legend, he called them barbiturates because he was infatuated with a woman called Barbara. Another word is sediment. These materials settled at the bottom of a liquid due to gravity. These materials remain sedentary and eventually turn into sedimentary rocks under heat and pressure. You can dig up some of these sedimentary rocks and sometimes discover fossils inside them. The word fossil itself comes from the Latin word fossilis, which means dug up. A typical practical you would do in school is filtration of sand and water. The filter paper has tiny gaps that only allow soluble substances to pass through them. Any insoluble material resides at the top here. We call this portion the residue. An unlikely related word here is the Upanishad. The Upanishads are part of the oldest scriptures in Hinduism and also supply some of the basis for Hindu philosophy. The Upa part comes from near or next to, and the Shad links to Sid. Putting it all together, the Upanishads then means sitting next to, because when students read the text, they are sitting next to the teacher of Hindu philosophy.